He let the Apache sisters escape on his best mule, and their father came before dark. The morning sun was just beginning to rise over the rugged hills when the settler opened his small cabin door. He was a man of quiet habits, strong hands, and eyes that had seen too many harsh seasons on the frontier. The wind whispered through the tall grasses, carrying the scent of earth and wildflowers, and the sound of distant birds added a gentle rhythm to the otherwise still landscape. His life was simple but hard, a constant battle against the unpredictable land and the untamed wildlife that roamed it. Every day he tended to his small herd of animals, repaired fences, and walked the thin line between survival and danger. Among all his animals there was one that held a special place in his heart, a strong, sure-footed mule. It was his best companion for long journeys across the rough terrain, capable of carrying heavy loads and navigating paths where few dared to tread. The mule's dark eyes were intelligent and alert, and the man often spoke to it as though it were a trusted friend. Today, like every other day, he saddled the mule, patting its neck gently, and whispered, "Let's see what the morning brings." He moved across the cabin yard, checking on his small garden and his chicken coop. Each task required patient skill and a careful eye. Even the simplest work on the frontier was a challenge. A sudden storm or a roaming wolf could turn a routine chore into a dangerous encounter. Yet he had learned to live with the tension, to respect the land and to trust his instincts. He had been here for many years, and in that time he had seen countless travelers pass through, some friendly, some not. As he tended to his chores, a movement at the edge of the clearing caught his eye. He froze, watching carefully. Two figures were emerging from the shadows of the trees. They moved quickly, but there was a cautiousness in their steps, a fear that was impossible to ignore. They were young women, perhaps no older than 16 or 17, with dark hair tied loosely and eyes wide with alertness. Their clothing was simple, worn from travel, but their movements spoke of skill and resilience. The settler's heart quickened. He had learned long ago to read signs of danger, and these young women carried the unmistakable mark of being hunted, or at least fleeing something serious. They glanced around constantly, as though every sound of the wind or rustle of a branch could mean trouble. The settler knew better than to wait for explanations. Survival often depended on immediate decisions. He stepped forward slowly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Easy now," he called in a calm voice. "I mean no harm." The sisters froze, exchanging a glance. One of them took a tentative step forward, then another, her eyes never leaving his face. Finally, with cautious trust, they approached. The settler noticed how alert and agile they were, moving with a silent grace that suggested years of living close to nature, learning to navigate the wilderness as though it were an extension of themselves. They did not speak much, but their gestures and expressions conveyed everything they needed. The elder sister pointed toward the west, then toward the settler's camp, as if asking for guidance and protection. The younger one clutched something close to her chest, a small bundle of belongings, likely all they had managed to carry during their flight. The man understood immediately. They were escaping danger, and he was their only hope for safety. Inside, the settler felt a knot tighten in his chest. He knew the risks of helping travelers in these lands. Outsiders might come searching, or worse, local authorities might see his actions as interference. Yet, there was something undeniable in the sister's eyes. Fear, yes, but also courage, and a quiet plea for help that he could not ignore. He took a deep breath and made a choice, one that would shape the events of that day and perhaps many days to come. He led them toward his best mule, stroking its neck as if introducing it to the girls. "This is my fastest mule," he said softly. "If you ride this one, you have a chance to reach safety." The sisters nodded, understanding the importance of his words without needing a translation. Their eyes shone with gratitude, mixed with the anxiety of knowing that every second counted. Before letting them mount, he gave careful instructions. He pointed toward a narrow path winding through the hills, shaded by thick trees and hidden from the main trail. "Follow this path," he said. "It will take you to a place where no one will follow easily. Stay low, keep quiet, and trust the mule. It knows the way better than any map." The sisters listened intently, memorizing every detail. Then, with a shared glance, They climbed onto the mule's back. The settler held the reins for a moment longer, feeling the tension in their small bodies, then gently nudged the animal forward. The mule responded immediately, moving with a careful but determined gait, carrying the sisters toward freedom. As they disappeared into the distance, the settler stood watching, a mixture of relief and anxiety coursing through him. He could not shake the worry that danger might still catch up to them. Yet he also felt a quiet pride. In that brief moment he had made a choice guided by conscience and courage, a choice that put another's safety above his own comfort and security. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of distant pine and the faint sound of the stream nearby. He could hear the mule's hooves fading into the wilderness, each step a reminder of the delicate balance between life and peril in these lands. For years he had lived surrounded by uncertainty, but this act, simple yet profound, felt different. It was a connection with humanity, a recognition that sometimes bravery was not in fighting, but in helping others survive. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher in the sky. The settler returned to his chores, but his mind kept wandering to the sisters and the dangerous path they were navigating. He checked the horizon repeatedly, scanning for any signs of pursuit, any indication that the risk he had taken might lead to tragedy. Yet there was only silence, punctuated by the occasional call of a bird or the rustle of leaves. By midday he allowed himself a brief rest, sitting on a rock near the edge of the clearing. The earth beneath him was warm, the wind soft against his skin, but his thoughts were far away. He pictured the sisters riding the mule, hearts pounding, eyes sharp, ears listening for any threat. He imagined the relief they would feel upon reaching safety, the joy of being reunited with loved ones, and the quiet gratitude that might follow. Even as he rested, he understood the fragile nature of trust and courage. On the frontier, one wrong move could cost a life, and yet, in that moment, helping the sisters had felt like the only right choice. He had no way of knowing the outcome, but he held on to hope, believing that bravery, however small, had its rewards. As the sun began to tilt toward the west, the settler prepared for the evening, tending to his animals and reinforcing the fences around his cabin. Every sound of the wilderness reminded him of the unknown, every shadow a potential threat. Yet there was also a calm within him, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that he had chosen humanity over fear, action over passivity. And somewhere beyond the hills, the mule carried the sisters steadily, guided by instinct, courage, and the hands of a man who had dared to trust and help them. Their journey had only just begun, but in this small act of bravery a bond was formed, a silent acknowledgement that in the vast and often harsh wilderness, compassion could be a force stronger than fear itself. The sisters rode quietly through the hills, their hearts beating fast with a mix of fear and determination. The mule moved steadily beneath them, its sure-footed steps carrying them across rocks, shallow streams, and hidden paths. The wind brushed against their faces, carrying the scent of pine and earth, and the distant sound of a running stream reminded them that the world beyond the hills was both beautiful and dangerous. The elder sister, who had taken the lead, whispered instructions to her younger sibling, urging her to hold on tight and trust the animal. They had been taught by their father to survive in the wilderness, to read the land, and to move silently when danger was near. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a branch made them tense, ready to react, yet the steady pace of the mule reassured them. Behind them the settler watched from a distance. He had returned to his cabin, but his thoughts could not leave the girls. He knew that the first few miles were the most dangerous. Predators, both human and wild, could appear without warning, and the wilderness had a way of turning even the simplest path into a trap. He kept his eyes on the horizon, scanning for any signs of pursuit, every instinct honed by years of living in this unforgiving land. The sisters followed the narrow trail carefully. One wrong step could send a mule slipping down a rocky slope, or worse, draw attention to their escape. Yet, despite the fear, there was a growing sense of hope. They knew they had a chance to reach safety because someone had shown them trust and courage, a stranger who risked everything to help them. That act of kindness gave them strength, a quiet fire that pushed them forward. The elder sister glanced back once, her eyes searching the distant clearing where the settler had last stood. She felt gratitude and fear mingling together. Gratitude for the man who had trusted them, fear for the unknown dangers that still lay ahead. "We must keep moving," she whispered, though her voice was carried softly by the wind. "No stopping! Not until we are far from here." The terrain grew more challenging as the day wore on. The path became steeper rocky outcrops appearing where only a careful mule could pass. The sisters leaned forward, guiding the animal with gentle hands, feeling the power beneath them as it navigated the uneven ground. The younger sister, though exhausted, kept her eyes alert, listening to the sounds of the forest, reading the signs of birds taking flight or the distant crack of a branch. Every signal could mean danger or safety. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the sisters came to a small creek. The water was clear and cold, tumbling over smooth stones. They slowed the mule and allowed it to drink, giving themselves a brief moment of rest. The elder sister filled a small flask from the creek, offering water to her sibling as well. They could hear the gentle rush of the water, a sound that was comforting yet reminded them that they were still exposed, vulnerable in the open.
"This way," the elder sister said, pointing toward a cluster of trees on the far side of the creek.
"The path will be safer under the cover of the forest. We can move faster without being seen." The younger sister nodded, trusting her sibling's judgment. Together they urged the mule forward, stepping lightly to keep the animal calm and balanced. While they rested, the settler returned to the edge of the clearing, peering through the trees. He knew the terrain well and understood that they would need careful guidance to reach safety. Though he could not be with them directly, he had chosen the mule wisely. It was not just a strong animal. It was intelligent, accustomed to difficult paths, and capable of making small decisions to avoid danger. He hoped that instinct, coupled with the girl's skill, would carry them through. The journey continued, and with each mile, the sisters felt a mixture of exhaustion and determination. Their muscles ached, their hands blistered from holding the reins, and yet they could not stop. They were acutely aware of the stakes. Every sound of the wilderness could be a threat. A coyote howling in the distance, the whisper of wind through the grass, even the shadow of a bird passing overhead. But they also learned to find small moments of beauty in their journey. The sunlight dancing on the creek, the scent of wild flowers, the warmth of the mule beneath them. Around mid-afternoon, the sisters heard a faint sound behind them, a rustle in the bushes, a noise that made their hearts jump. They froze, eyes wide. The elder sister raised a hand, signaling silence. The mule shifted slightly, alert to the tension in its riders. For a moment, time seemed to stretch, the forest holding its breath. Then, slowly, a small deer emerged from the trees and bounded away, and the sisters exhaled in relief, their pulse gradually returning to normal.
"That was close," whispered the younger sister, gripping the reins tightly.
"We can't let anything surprise us again." The elder sister nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon, her mind already planning the next stretch of the journey. "We have to stay calm. Fear will slow us down. We move carefully, and we survive." As the sun began to tilt toward the west, casting long shadows across the hills, the sisters came to a ridge overlooking a small valley. They paused, taking in the view. Below them, a winding path disappeared into a cluster of dense trees. It would be difficult to follow, almost invisible from above, and that made it the perfect route. The elder sister guided the mule carefully down the slope, feeling the animal's sure steps on the rocky ground. Every step forward was a test of skill and courage. The younger sister, though trembling slightly, followed her sibling's lead, leaning into the movement of the mule. They had been taught to rely on each other, to trust instincts, and to respect the power of the land. And in that moment, every lesson they had learned was put to use. Meanwhile, the settler returned home once more, preparing for the evening while keeping one eye on the horizon. He knew that helping the sisters had been a dangerous choice, and yet he could not regret it. Life on the frontier was full of hard decisions, moments when morality and survival clashed. He had chosen to act, and now the outcome depended on courage, trust, and the ability to navigate a world full of uncertainty. As the afternoon light faded into early evening, the sisters reached a small grove where the trees formed a natural shelter. They dismounted the mule carefully, letting it graze while they rested. The elder sister checked their supplies. A few small pieces of food, some water, and a cloth to bandage any minor injuries. The younger sister tended to a small scratch on her arm, caused by a branch during the descent. "We can make it," the elder sister said quietly, more to herself than to her sibling. "We just have to keep moving. The safety of the valley is close. We've come too far to turn back now." The younger sister nodded, a flicker of determination lighting her eyes. Despite exhaustion, fear, and uncertainty, they refused to give up. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Shadows lengthened across the landscape, and the sisters knew that time was running short. They mounted the mule once more, guided by instinct and the careful instructions they had received earlier. Every movement was deliberate, every sound noted and interpreted. They were no longer just fleeing. They were learning to move as one with the land, to trust in the knowledge passed down by their father, and to rely on the courage that had brought them this far. With each step, the tension grew. The path became narrower, the forest thicker, and the possibility of being discovered more real. Yet the mule carried them steadily, and the sisters' focus never wavered. They whispered encouragement to each other, keeping spirits high even in the face of exhaustion. Together they were stronger, and together they would reach the safety that lay just beyond the horizon. By late evening, they came to a small clearing with a stream cutting through it. The light was fading fast, and they knew they could not go much further before darkness fell. The elder sister guided the mule to the edge of the water, letting it drink while the younger sister searched for a place to rest safely for a short while. Even in moments of respite, the sisters stayed alert, knowing that danger could appear at any time. From a distance, the settler watched the horizon as the sun disappeared behind the hills. He knew the sisters were nearing a safer path, one that would eventually bring them closer to their father. He felt a sense of relief, but it was tempered with worry. The wilderness was unpredictable, and even the best plans could be disrupted by sudden events. Still, he had faith in their courage, in the mule's instinct, and in the lessons of survival that had carried them this far. As the first stars appeared in the sky, the sisters prepared to move again, guided by the soft glow of twilight. They whispered plans to each other, shared quiet reassurances, and urged the mule forward one last time before darkness fell. Every sense was alert, every movement calculated, and every heartbeat a reminder of the stakes. The journey had tested them in ways they had never imagined. Yet, with courage, trust, and determination, they had come further than most would have dared. And as they rode through the final stretch of trees before the valley, a sense of hope began to blossom. A quiet certainty that, despite the dangers, they were not alone. Someone had shown them kindness, and that act of bravery had given them the strength to face the unknown. The forest grew darker as the sisters continued their journey. The sun had nearly set, leaving only a faint glow behind the hills, and the shadows of the trees stretched across the narrow path. The air was cooler now, and the quiet of the evening made every sound seem louder. The mule's hooves crunched softly on the forest floor, moving steadily along the winding trail. Every step forward felt like a small victory, yet the sisters knew that danger could appear at any moment. The elder sister leaned slightly forward, her hands gripping the reins tightly, her eyes scanning the darkness ahead. "Stay close," she whispered to her younger sibling. "We must not let anything surprise us." The younger sister nodded, her heart racing, and tried to steady her breathing. Each sound of a snapping twig, each rustle of leaves made her jump, but she trusted her sister and the mule completely. They had learned a lot about survival from their father. He had taught them to read the land, to recognize signs of danger, and to move silently when necessary. Now, those lessons were more important than ever. The sisters moved as quietly as possible, keeping the mule calm while navigating the uneven ground. They crossed small streams, climbed rocky slopes, and followed hidden paths that only someone familiar with the land could find. Every obstacle tested their courage, skill, and determination. Meanwhile, the settler watched from a distance, concealed by the shadows of the hills. He could not follow them directly, but he knew the terrain well and could predict the path they were likely to take. His heart was heavy with worry, knowing that the wilderness could be merciless. Predators, Sudden storms, or even other humans searching for the sisters could appear at any moment. Yet he also trusted in the mule, in the sisters' instincts, and in the careful instructions he had given them earlier. As the night deepened, the sisters reached a small clearing surrounded by tall trees. They dismounted the mule briefly, allowing it to graze and rest, and checked their surroundings. The moon had risen now, casting silver light through the branches and illuminating the path ahead. It was beautiful, but also eerie. Shadows seemed to move in the corner of their eyes, and the sound of distant animals made them tense. "We must keep going," said the elder sister, her voice firm but quiet. Resting too long could be dangerous. The younger sister agreed, and they mounted the mule once more, continuing along the winding trail. Every step required concentration. Every sound demanded attention. They were no longer simply traveling. They were navigating a maze of shadows, guided only by instinct, courage, and the hope that safety was just ahead. Suddenly, a noise from the bushes made them freeze. A low rustle, followed by a snapping branch, echoed through the forest. The sisters pressed closer to the mule, their eyes wide, hearts pounding. The elder sister whispered, "Stay calm. It might be an animal. Move slowly." They inched forward, trying not to disturb anything, but the tension in the air was thick. From the distance, the settler noticed a faint movement near the edge of the clearing. He could not see clearly in the darkness, but his instincts told him to stay hidden. Any sudden action could alert someone, or something, to the sisters' location. He remained still, watching and waiting, hoping that his earlier decision to help them would not lead to disaster. The sisters continued on, carefully following the narrow path that led deeper into the forest. The mule seemed to understand the urgency, moving steadily without haste, navigating rocks and roots with precision. The elder sister guided it with gentle but firm hands, whispering encouragements to keep it calm. The younger sister held on tightly, trusting her sister's judgment and the animal beneath them. After what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, they reached a small stream cutting through the forest. The water was clear, and the moonlight reflected off its surface like silver threads. They slowed the mule and allowed it to drink, giving themselves a brief moment to catch their breath. The elder sister checked their supplies: a small piece of bread, some water, and a cloth to cover minor scratches or cuts. The younger sister carefully cleaned a small scratch on her arm, caused by a branch earlier. "We are close," the elder sister said softly. "I can feel it. The path through the valley is just ahead. We must stay focused." The younger sister nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. Every step they took now brought them closer to safety, yet the danger of the night reminded them that nothing could be taken for granted. As they continued, the sounds of the forest grew quieter, almost as if the land itself was holding its breath. The sisters moved in harmony with the mule, their hearts beating in unison with the rhythm of its steps. The forest was alive with unseen eyes, and every shadow could conceal a threat. Yet the sisters remained calm, drawing on the lessons their father had taught them and the courage that had carried them this far. Suddenly a loud crack echoed through the trees. The sisters froze, eyes wide. A branch had fallen from a tree, but in the dark it sounded like something, or someone, approaching. The mule shifted nervously, ears twitching, and the elder sister whispered urgently, "Move slowly. Keep calm. Nothing must alert anyone to our presence." The sisters guided the mule forward cautiously, heart pounding with every step. They reached a dense thicket where the path became almost invisible. The elder sister dismounted briefly, guiding the mule with careful hands, making sure it did not stumble. The younger sister followed, holding the reins and supporting the animal. The forest was thick here, the trees close together and the ground uneven, but they moved carefully, trusting their instincts and the animal beneath them. Meanwhile, the settler remained hidden on the ridge, watching the sisters' progress. He felt a mixture of relief and worry. Relief that they had made it this far without incident, and worry that the darkness in the terrain could still pose dangers he could not control. He whispered a quiet prayer, hoping that the girl's courage and the mule's skill would see them through the night. The sisters finally reached a small hill that overlooked a valley. From this height they could see a winding path, leading through a grove of trees. almost invisible from the ridge. The elder sister guided the mule down the slope carefully, every step calculated to avoid slipping on the rocks. The younger sister followed closely, keeping the animal steady and alert. By now, the moon was high in the sky, casting pale light across the landscape. The sisters felt a flicker of hope. They could almost sense the safety of the valley ahead. Yet they knew better than to relax. The night still held unknown dangers. They whispered to each other, reminding themselves to stay calm, stay alert, and keep moving. As they descended into the valley, a distant howl echoed through the hills. The sisters froze, hearts racing. It was the call of a coyote, a reminder that the wilderness was never truly safe. The mule responded instinctively, moving with even more care, guided by its own instincts and the confidence of the riders. The elder sister whispered softly, "It's okay. Keep going. We are almost there." The younger sister nodded, gripping the reins tightly and focusing on the path ahead. Finally, they reached a small grove at the edge of the valley. The trees formed a natural barrier, concealing them from any eyes that might be searching. The elder sister allowed the mule to rest, stroking its neck in gratitude for carrying them this far. The younger sister checked their surroundings, making sure they were not visible from the main path. The air was cool and calm, and for the first time that evening, they felt a small measure of relief. "We did," whispered the younger sister, her voice trembling with emotion. "We're safe, at least for now." The elder sister nodded, though she remained vigilant. "Not completely yet," she said softly. "We must stay here until dawn, hidden, and then we can move closer to our father's place." From a distance, the settler watched the sisters as they settled in the grove. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction mixed with ongoing concern. They had navigated the forest with skill and courage, guided by instinct and the lessons of survival. He knew the final part of their journey was still ahead, but he also knew that he had given them the best chance possible. The act of trust and bravery had carried them through the most dangerous part of the night. As the forest settled into silence, the sisters remained alert, but finally allowed themselves to breathe. They whispered quietly, recounting the events of the day and reminding themselves that they had made it this far because of courage, determination, and the help of someone who had believed in them. The mule stood quietly beside them, a silent companion in their journey, its dark eyes reflecting the moonlight. Though darkness surrounded them, a small sense of hope glimmered. They had escaped immediate danger, navigated difficult terrain, and proven to themselves that courage, intelligence, and trust could overcome fear. They knew the final stretch would be challenging, but for now, they could rest, gather strength, and prepare to reunite with their father. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the valley in soft shades of gold and pink. The sisters had stayed hidden through the night, their bodies weary, but their spirits steady. They had survived the darkness, guided by courage, instinct, and the mule that had carried them through the forest's shadows. The grove where they rested offered a sense of protection, the trees forming a quiet barrier from the dangers that still lurked in the wilderness. The elder sister stretched her arms and glanced at her younger sibling. "We've made it through the night," she whispered softly. "But we must not celebrate yet. The hardest part is still ahead." The younger sister nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her body ached from the long ride, and her hands were sore from holding the reins. Yet in her eyes, there was a determined spark. They had come too far to falter now. The mule stood quietly nearby, grazing on the sparse grass. Its calm presence was a source of reassurance, a reminder that instinct and loyalty could carry them through even the most uncertain moments. The elder sister patted the animal gently. "Thank you," she said quietly. "We couldn't have made it without you." The younger sister mimicked her gesture, and for a brief moment the three companions shared a silent bond, one built on trust, courage, and the trials of the past hours. The path ahead led down the slope of the valley toward a small river, where the sisters knew their father might be waiting. They had hoped to reach him the day before, but the dangers of the forest had slowed them. Now, as the morning light grew stronger, the promise of safety and reunion felt close. The elder sister guided the mule carefully, navigating the uneven terrain with practiced skill, while the younger sister followed closely, keeping a watchful eye on their surroundings. Every step was taken with caution. Though the night had passed, the wilderness was still unpredictable. Birds began to call in the trees, and small animals scurried through the underbrush. The sisters moved silently, understanding that even in daylight, danger could appear without warning. Yet the thought of their father waiting ahead gave them strength, a reminder that courage and determination had a reward beyond survival: the warmth of family, the comfort of home, and the relief of being together once more. From the edge of the hills, the settler watched their progress. He had stayed hidden through the night, aware that his presence might cause more harm than good if discovered. Now, as the sun rose, he could see the sisters moving steadily down the slope. Relief washed over him, but worry remained. The forest, though calmer in the morning light, was still full of unknown hazards, and he knew that the final stretch of their journey would require focus, skill, and a measure of luck. As the sisters reached the river, they paused to let the mule drink from the cool, clear water. The elder sister scanned the banks carefully, noting the tracks in the terrain. "We are close," she whispered. "I can feel it. He must be nearby."
The younger sister's heart raced at the thought of seeing their father again.
Months of fear, uncertainty, and the long, dangerous journey had led to this moment. Relief, gratitude, and anticipation mingled in her chest, strengthening her resolve to continue. Suddenly, movement caught their eyes on the opposite bank of the river. A figure was emerging from the trees, a man strong and alert, his eyes scanning the surroundings. At first, they could not be certain, but as he drew closer, recognition dawned. It was their father. His face was etched with worry, his posture tense, yet there was a spark of hope in his eyes as he spotted his daughters. The sisters' hearts leapt. "Father!" the younger sister called out, her voice trembling with emotion. She raised her hand, and the elder sister followed suit. The man's eyes widened, and a mix of relief and astonishment spread across his face. He moved quickly toward the riverbank, calling their names softly, almost in disbelief that they had arrived safely. The sisters guided the mule closer to the river, careful to remain calm and steady. As they approached, their father's steps quickened, and the moment of reunion drew near. The elder sister dismounted first, reaching for her father's hands. Tears filled their eyes as they embraced, a release of fear, relief, and love that had been building for months. The younger sister followed, clinging to her father, her small frame trembling with emotion. The father held them tightly, speaking words of comfort and gratitude. "You are safe," he whispered repeatedly. "Safe and alive. I feared I had lost you, but here you are." His voice broke with emotion, and the sisters clung to him, sharing in the quiet triumph of survival. The forest around them seemed to grow still, as if witnessing a miracle. A family reunited against all odds. The mule, sensing the calm and relief, remained quietly nearby, grazing on the riverbank. Its role in the journey had been crucial, and the sisters acknowledged it with gentle pats and whispered thanks. The father's eyes softened as he looked at the animal, understanding that it had been more than a companion. It had been a guardian, carrying his daughters safely through the perils of the night. After a few moments, the father stepped back slightly, still holding their hands. He looked at them closely, noting the weariness on their faces, the small scratches, the dirt and sweat that marked their journey. "You were brave," he said softly, "braver than I could have imagined. Your courage saved you, and perhaps more than that, it reminded me of the strength we carry within us." The sisters listened, their hearts swelling with pride and relief. The elder sister explained briefly how they had been guided by a kind stranger and his mule, recounting the careful instructions and the courage it took to trust someone in a dangerous land. The father's eyes widened with surprise and gratitude. "A stranger?" he said. "To risk his own safety for you? That is rare. That is honor." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We must remember him. Perhaps one day we can repay this kindness, though I fear words alone will never be enough." The sisters nodded, their gratitude evident. They had felt the kindness and bravery firsthand, and it had given them the strength to survive the night. They knew they had been given a chance that few in the wilderness ever received. The father's acknowledgement made the bond between them stronger, a reminder that courage, trust, and human kindness could overcome even the most dangerous situations. As the morning light grew brighter, the family prepared to leave the riverbank. The sisters remounted the mule, and their father led them carefully along the safe path toward their home. The journey was slower now, filled with cautious steps, but the tension of the night had lifted. Each step was accompanied by words of reassurance, encouragement, and quiet conversation, a return to normalcy after the extraordinary events of the past hours. Along the way, the father spoke of lessons for the future, sharing knowledge about navigating the wilderness, reading signs of danger, and trusting instincts. The sisters listened carefully, absorbing every word, knowing that their survival depended not only on courage, but also on knowledge and preparation. The mule carried them steadily, responding to gentle guidance and instinctive understanding, a silent witness to the reunion and the safe passage back home. By mid-morning, the family reached a familiar clearing near their home. The father slowed his pace, allowing the sisters and the mule to rest. He looked at them with pride and relief, grateful for their survival and the bravery they had shown. The forest behind them held the memory of danger, but now it also held the memory of courage, trust, and human kindness. The elder sister spoke quietly to her father. "We owe our safety to someone who trusted us, who risked everything to help us. We must never forget him." The father nodded, his eyes reflecting the same sentiment. "We will remember," he said, "and perhaps one day we can repay such courage with the same bravery and kindness." The younger sister smiled, exhausted but happy. "We made it," she whispered. "We're together, and we're safe." Her words echoed in the quiet clearing, carrying the relief and gratitude of a journey survived, a danger overcome, and a family reunited. The sun climbed higher, warming the valley and casting light on the path ahead. Though the sisters were still weary, the promise of safety, home, and family guided every step. They knew the journey was not over, but the hardest part, the fear, the danger, the uncertainty, was behind them. Courage, trust, and the kindness of a stranger had carried them through, and now, with their father beside them, they were ready to face whatever came next. As they approached the home, the father looked back toward the forest, silently acknowledging the settler and his mule. Though unseen, they had played a role in this reunion, their bravery and kindness woven into the story of survival. The family entered the clearing together, hearts full of gratitude, relief, and the quiet knowledge that sometimes courage and trust could change the course of fate. The sun was now high in the sky, spilling warm golden light across the valley. Birds sang in the trees, and the gentle rustle of leaves filled the air with a peaceful rhythm. After the tense and dangerous journey through the forest, the sisters finally felt the safety of home. Their father walked beside them, his hand resting lightly on the elder sister's shoulder, guiding them toward their small cabin nestled at the edge of the clearing. Every step was steady and calm, a sharp contrast to the hurried, tense movements of the previous day. The sisters dismounted from the mule, allowing it to graze on the soft grass. Its dark, intelligent eyes reflected the sunlight, and the girl stroked its neck in gratitude. Without this loyal animal, they knew they could not have made it through the dangerous forest paths. The mule had been more than a companion. It had been a protector, a steady force that carried them safely over rocks, streams, and uneven terrain. They whispered thanks to it, and in that quiet moment the bond between humans and animal felt complete and sacred. The father led the sisters into the cabin yard. Their mother was already there, tending to the small garden, and she looked up in alarm at the sight of her daughters approaching. Relief and disbelief crossed her face, followed by tears of joy. She dropped her tools and rushed forward, embracing them tightly. The younger sister clung to her mother, letting out a long, trembling breath that carried away the fear of the past hours. The elder sister held on to her mother as well, sharing in the warmth of reunion. For a few moments, words were unnecessary. The family simply held each other, letting the relief of safety wash over them. The forest, the night, and the dangerous journey felt far away now, replaced by the comfort of home, the familiar scent of earth and flowers, and the steady presence of family. The father finally spoke, his voice steady but full of emotion. We are together, he said softly. And that is all that matters. The dangers are behind us, and from now on, we will stay safe as a family. After a short rest, the family gathered in the cabin to share a simple meal. The sisters recounted parts of their journey, carefully leaving out the details that might cause worry but sharing enough to express the bravery, skill, and determination they had relied upon. Their father listened intently, nodding with pride at the courage his daughters had shown. He also spoke of the lessons learned, the importance of trust, preparedness, and calm judgment in the face of danger. The sisters spoke of the settler, the man who had helped them, and his mule. Their father's eyes widened in surprise and gratitude as he listened. "A stranger, risking his own safety to guide you?" he said. "That is rare and honorable. His courage is the same as yours, and perhaps even greater, for he acted without guarantee of reward or recognition." The elder sister nodded, recounting how carefully he had instructed them, how wisely he had chosen the mule, and how much courage it had taken to intervene in a dangerous situation. The father smiled quietly, a mixture of relief, pride, and gratitude in his expression. "We must remember him," he said. "Sometimes the kindness of strangers is what saves us, and it is our duty to carry that kindness forward, to live in a way that honors bravery and humanity." The sisters listened, understanding fully. They knew that while the danger had passed, the lessons of courage, trust, and moral strength were enduring and would guide them for the rest of their lives. As the afternoon sunlight poured through the windows, the family prepared the mule for rest. They led it to the stable, feeding it hay and water and checking for any signs of strain or injury. The animal had carried them safely through peril, and the care it received was a small acknowledgment of its remarkable service. The sisters stayed close, brushing its coat and speaking quietly, as though the mule understood their gratitude. Later, the father took the sisters aside to discuss the lessons learned from the journey. "Bravery is not always about fighting," he explained. "It is also about making the right choice, even when it is difficult. It is about helping others, trusting in what is good, and keeping hope alive, even in the darkest moments. You have shown all of this, and it will guide you in life." The elder sister listened carefully, her eyes bright with understanding. The younger sister nodded, feeling a quiet pride swell in her chest.
The day passed peacefully, and the family spent the evening tending to their home, the garden, and the animals.
The cabin, which had always been a place of safety, now felt even more secure, filled with the warmth of reunion and the calm of survival. The sisters found comfort in routine, knowing that the wilderness was still beyond their yard, but that they had faced it and survived together. As twilight approached, the father led the sisters outside to the edge of the clearing, toward the forest where their journey had begun. He wanted them to understand the courage and skill it had taken to navigate the dangerous pass. "See this land," he said. "It is beautiful, but it is not without danger. What you faced here is a lesson in life. Courage, trust, and kindness will guide you when the path is uncertain." The sisters nodded, reflecting on the journey, the risks, and the acts of bravery that had brought them safely home. The elder sister spoke of the settler once more, and the father listened with reverence. "We must honor him," he said. "Though he will not seek recognition, we should carry his act of courage in our hearts. Perhaps one day, when we are strong and capable, we can repay such bravery with the same kindness and courage." The younger sister smiled, understanding fully. Acts of goodness, she realized, had a ripple effect that extended far beyond the immediate moment. That night, as the family sat around the cabin fire, the sisters reflected quietly on the journey. They thought of the fear they had felt, the courage they had summoned, and the trust that had carried them through. They remembered the mule's steady steps, the settler's careful instructions, and the quiet determination that had guided them in the darkest hours. Though the experience had been exhausting and terrifying, it had also strengthened them, taught them lessons of courage, and created memories that would last a lifetime. Father watched them, his heart filled with pride and relief. "You have learned well," he said softly. "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act despite it. You have shown that, and I am proud. You have also shown that trust and kindness can change the course of events. Remember this always. The sisters listened, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment and understanding. The lessons of the journey were now a part of who they were. In the days that followed, the family continued their routine, tending to the garden, caring for the animals, and maintaining their home. Yet the memory of the journey remained vivid. Each glance toward the forest reminded them of the dangers they had faced, the courage they had displayed, and the kindness they had received. The elder sister often spoke to her younger sibling about how important it was to act bravely and wisely in difficult situations, and the younger sister listened, absorbing the lessons fully. The story of their escape began to grow in their minds, transforming into a tale of courage, trust, and humanity. They remembered the settler not only for his bravery but also for his quiet wisdom, his ability to act when it was needed most, and his trust in them to follow his guidance. His actions had created a ripple effect, saving their lives and teaching them the value of moral courage. As weeks passed, the sisters continued to explore the surrounding hills and valleys, now with a greater awareness of the land and the dangers it held. They practiced the skills they had relied upon during their escape, moving quietly, reading the terrain, observing wildlife, and trusting their instincts. Each step they took was a reminder of the journey they had survived, the courage they had shown, and the kindness they had encountered. The father often spoke of the importance of memory and gratitude. "Never forget the hands that helped you," he said. "Even in a world that can be harsh, there are those who act with honor. Remember them, honor them, and let their actions guide your own." The sisters nodded, understanding fully that the journey had taught them lessons far beyond survival. It had taught them how to live with courage, compassion, and wisdom. Even as the seasons changed, the memory of the night and the mule's steady steps remained vivid. They often spoke of the settler, imagining him continuing his life, quietly helping others in need. The sisters understood that bravery was not always celebrated, but it was remembered, carried forward in the hearts of those whose lives were touched by it. In the quiet evenings, the family would sit together reflecting on the journey, sharing stories, and expressing gratitude. They felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that courage, trust, and kindness had guided them through one of the most dangerous moments of their lives. The forest, once a place of fear, had become a symbol of resilience and survival. The mule, the silent hero of the journey, rested in the stable, a constant reminder of loyalty, strength, and the quiet power of instinct and trust. The sisters grew older, carrying the lessons of that journey with them. They faced other challenges in life, but the memory of courage, kindness, and trust always guided them. They remembered the settler's bravery, the mule's loyalty, and their own determination. And in every decision they made, in every choice between fear and action, they recalled that day when trust and courage had changed the course of their lives. Finally, on calm mornings when the wind rustled through the trees and the sun painted the hills with golden light, the sisters would glance toward the horizon, thinking of the settler and his mule. They smiled quietly, knowing that some acts of bravery, though unseen by the world, left a mark that could never be erased. Courage, trust, and kindness were not just actions, they were legacies, carried forward in hearts and memories, guiding all who were brave enough to live by them. And so, life continued in the valley. The family remained close, bound together by love, experience, and survival. The journey had tested them, changed them, and strengthened them. But above all, it had shown them the quiet power of courage, the value of trust, and the enduring impact of kindness, a legacy that would live on long after the dangers of that day were forgotten.